I'm joined here at the DNC in Chicago with Governor Gavin Newsom from my home state of California. Governor Newsom, thanks for joining.
Good to be with you. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much. So we have seen Donald Trump dissemble over the last few weeks. A big part of what he's trying to do by maintaining this strongman persona is to show himself as stronger than all the Democrats, but we've only seen that kind of fall by the wayside and him continue to dissemble and throw these desperate punches left and right.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a way for him to come back from this, especially in light of what we're seeing here at the DNC?
Well, you can never, as a political animal, you can't underestimate him. That said, he's a T-Rex within the Republican Party. He'll kill you or mate with you. Outside of the Republican Party, he's a completely different thing. And right now, he's weakness masquerading as strength. He has completely fallen flat. He's lost his bearings. And it's not only obvious in terms of the derivative nature of his performances, which are getting duller and duller and duller, but the fact that so many members of his team and inner circle are starting to express doubt and concern as well.
Let's talk about his favorite topic, crowd size, for just a moment. We have seen the crowds get a little thin at his recent rallies, and yet we're here in Chicago at the DNC. This arena is packed night after night. We're also seeing rallies happening at the same time where Kamala Harris is showing up at the same time at the DNC, and those are packed as well. How do you think that that's going to land with him?
I mean, it's all about aesthetics. It's all about style.
Right.
There's never been about substance. So if that's what you score, is that what you consider? That's your reflection of your value and your self-worth. Then it has a devastating psychological impact on him and makes him more unhinged, makes him more incapable of delivering a consistent and cogent message. And look, end of the day, he needs to get back on track, and very quickly. Our job is to make sure he doesn't get back on track, and that means we've got to maintain the vigilance and momentum moving forward.
So you mentioned that he's getting more and more unhinged. Ultimately, I think if he looks back at 2016 and when he was able to just consolidate all of the attention onto himself, he's conditioned himself into believing that that's what it takes to win.
Yep.
That's what won him the election in 2016.
Yeah.
We were focused on empty podiums as far as he was concerned. And so
Right.
he's doing the same thing. He knows if he can say something that's loud or obnoxious enough that all of the eyeballs will go back onto him, and then he'll win the election magically, just like he did back then. Do you think that strategy is going to prove successful for him?
No, you're 100% right. I mean, he didn't care if he was the heel or the hero as long as he was the star.
Right.
And that's always been what he sells. And as long as, again, he's the area of, but that's what's radically changed. We're not, it goes without saying, there's nothing about Kamala Harris they were prepared for. They never saw this coming. They underestimated her. They undervalued her. They never imagined the Democratic Party would unify and unify so quickly. They're completely flat-footed. And as a consequence, the focus is now on the new energy of the Democratic Party. And end of the day, it's where the energy goes. Momentum flows, and we're moving that momentum in towards direction at a time when he's losing the momentum, and that's going to ultimately be determined.
I remember just a few years back when it felt like Democrats had no bench, basically, and now you look at the young, the stars that make up the bench of the Democratic Party and how deep that bench is, yourself included. Can you speak on that and what you look forward to in terms of not just this election but future election cycles?
Look, obviously we have some remarkable people in the federal level. I mean, as senators and congressional leaders, but the quality of these Democratic governors is next level.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to see it showcased with Wes and Josh, obviously with Gretchen. You saw that in terms of the VP stakes. I mean, it was just
and you won't say it, but you were very much on that list as well.
No, hardly, but I appreciate it. But it is an extraordinary thing, because you're exactly right. It wasn't that many years ago. I was like, what the hell's going on with the Democratic Party?
If you look back into like the 2016 election, it very much felt like, okay, this is it's going to be Hillary Clinton because who else is there? The bench wasn't deep enough to have the depth of talent that we have now.
Right. No, and I think what's remarkable also about the quality of this bench is the diversity in this context, not just ideological. It's usually been about which wing of the Democratic Party. Are you a DLC Democrat,
right,
or are you quote unquote progressive, more liberal, Bernie side, the other? This is more nuanced. The party now. It's now more geographic based.
Yeah.
It's obviously there's a racial ethnic component, gender component, but it is a quality of imagination as well across a spectrum of unique and distinctive talents that make this a special group.
And that's an especially potent point here, because as we look at somebody like Tim Walz, who you look at that guy and you don't exactly doesn't exactly scream flaming liberal, right? Like this isn't your communist. This isn't the usual communist, leftist, Marxist Democrat that they're warning about. The guy is wearing camo. He comes from the Midwest. He is a rural American, a high school coach, a union guy, and so. And that happens at the same time that we're seeing a lot of the chants in these rooms, in these rallies, for example, be chants of USA, USA, USA at Democratic rallies.
I love that.
Which is something you wouldn't see.
We need to bring patriotism back to this damn party.
Can you talk about Democrats reclaiming a lot of the ideals that Republicans have been able to co-opt for so long?
It's as you know, it's been a source of so much of my frustration. The idea that we were losing the freedom band,
right?
As these guys are banning books, banning speech, they were on this cultural purge, rewriting history, censoring historical facts. But this notion of patriotism is incredibly important. And I think as a party, one of the key things that we need to focus more on is not, as Bill Clinton would say, all our interesting differences, but the things that bind us together. That web of mutuality Dr. King talked about, and focus more on those unifying themes. And one of them is that we are all proud that we're all Americans. And it's a point of deep pride, not just Democrats. We all want to be loved. We all need to be loved. We all want to be protected, connected. We all want to be respected. And Tim Walz is one of those guys. He'll never talk down to someone. He'll never talk past someone. And you feel that. And that's a universal value. And I think it makes him universally appealing and profoundly potent as a VP candidate.
Universally appealing as a VP candidate, in stark contrast to what we're seeing from JD Vance right now. Can you talk about, we're talking about the authenticity of this guy. Can you talk about the phoniness of JD Vance?
Anyone that calls Trump American Hitler, that builds his career on actually calling balls and strikes, and then completely reverses and flips, that's no character. Can't trust a thing that guy says. Cannot trust a thing this guy says. And that follows suit, doesn't it? What a perfect choice for Donald Trump, because that's the one damn thing they have in common besides perverted points of view.
Yeah, and in fact, I think even to a degree, Donald Trump started to see what an anchor around his neck JD Vance has been, because the first opportunity he had to either hug him or run away from him, he chose the latter. And I think it was at the National Association of Black Journalists where he was asked whether JD Vance would be ready for day one. And rather than saying, yes, of course, that's why I chose him as my VP pick, he instead said, oh, he's never going to be president anyway. It's just going to be all about me.
It's all about me. Immediately regretted the choice. Regretted the choice. And of course, how did he kick off after his convention? It was a week of stories about some of the asinine and absurd positions and things that publicly JD Vance has said about women, child. I mean, it's a nerd to our benefit. Momentum's now in our camp. We no longer have headwinds. We've got these tailwinds. But again, we do it at our peril, underestimating Donald Trump. Figuring it ultimately out as he's flailing now. That doesn't necessarily predict the future.
Right. Talk about California for a second, because California is really surging into the spotlight here in terms of the people that have come out of it. Kamala Harris is obviously the former Attorney General of California, U.S. Senator from California, and Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House from California. What is it like for you to come from this state that was largely unrepresented in the national stage, and now it's the spot?
I know. I mean, the talent pool, and coming out of the Bay Area as well. I mean, Kamala and Nancy.
LA, we've got some
you're doing fine. You got two great U.S. senators from LA. Kamala is now a Los Angeles resident.
That's right.
But look, it goes to the nature of the politics in California. It's a contact sport.
Yeah.
Those small cities, man, everybody. I mean, I don't care if you're housed or unhoused. People have opinions. They're up on the news. You can't get in a cab or Uber without someone expressing their point of view. So people are up on the issues. You got to be on your game all the time. You got to watch your back in California politics. So it's such a great training ground. And what I love about Kamala is she really worked. It's bottom up. Assistant District Attorney in Alameda County, star shining brighter as DA, worked her way up in a tough race, gritty race, hard fought won race as Attorney General, a leader nationally as AG. We saw what she did, tough advocate, prosecuting the case, cross-examinations as United States Senator. She had the courage, and it takes courage to run for President of the United States. That kickoff was next level in a presidential. The campaign was tough, but most of us that run for president, I haven't. I, for the grace of God, go anyone. Most of them lose. So she had, I think, a remarkable launch to that presidential campaign, and she's been a remarkable VP. Now she's going to be the next president of the United States. That's a hell of a resume, a hell of a career.
You very smartly made the point that this thing is far from in the bag for Democrats. What's your message to Democrats as we head toward these final 75 days in terms of both maintaining a degree of optimism, but then being very aware of the threats that can face us? I mean, we've counted Donald Trump out once before.
100%. You can't run the 90-yard dash. We just had in the Olympics. There wasn't a sprinter that ran the 90-yard dash. They run the 110-yard dash, so they're peak when they hit that finish line. We've got to have that mindset that we're at peak when we cross that finish line. We dialed it in with Hillary Clinton, didn't we, at the end? We figured she's going to win. We fell prey to the polls and punditry. None of us, I think, are naive in this case. But look, bottom line, got to stay on the offense. We can't allow these guys to shape-shift this debate, and we're back on our heels. We've got to stay on top and get a unified voice aggressively prosecuting the case against Donald Trump. Yes, for Kamala Harris, but against Donald Trump.
Well, you're one of the Democratic Party's best messengers, so where are we going to see you in this final sprint toward the finish line?
Wherever. I'm like, put me in, Coach.
Yeah. Literally.
Like, put me in. So Coach Waltz, put me in. Coach Karras, put me in. So wherever we need to be. I was nice to be on the floor, to be able to announce those 482 votes for Kamala Harris. That was a gift. I was honored to be asked to do that. But look, it's too much at stake. And I say this as a guy who comes from the most un-Trump state in America.
Yeah.
There's no state that has more to lose and more to gain than California. We fall short.
And finally, let's finish off with this. What's been your most memorable moment from the DNC so far?
Honestly, it's a sense of spirit and pride. It's the intangible.
Yeah.
You can tell. It's not numbers, not numerics, it's not delegate counts and anything like that. It's not who gave the best speech. It's what happens in between. It's those in between, it's those silent moments. It's the physiology of people.
Yeah.
There's just energy and pride and you know, you heard Corey say that about joy.
Yep.
Joyful warriors. And people, I think there's a warrior mentality that we're in a fight for the fate and future of our country, this world that we're trying to build, but there's a joyfulness.
It's such a great point because, you know, Kamala Harris is running against the same opponent as Joe Biden was. It was just as clear when Joe Biden was running against Donald Trump how dangerous he was, but something was missing in that campaign and that he wasn't able to prosecute the case for a second term. Kamala Harris is, and so now by virtue of being able to prosecute that case, but doing it in such a way that you are selling hope and optimism and a vision for the future, that is that intangible that we haven't seen, by the way, since 2008, and that we're seeing again right now. And that is, you know, when you look back and what propelled us to victory in 2008, it's that sense of hope. It's that intangible that on paper you wouldn't think you need, but clearly with the way the polling's been going, the way 100%. Registrations have been going, the way donations and volunteers and, you know, everything.
Unbelievable.
That's the difference.
And I think here's the difference between what Kamala Harris can do versus Joe Biden as the incumbent, is she has the ability to pivot from the last 3.5 years as Biden-Harris administration, take credit for a lot of the good things, but now create a compelling future. She has the opportunity Thursday to introduce herself to the American people. I mean, how many people go, I didn't know she worked at McDonald's.
Totally.
People didn't even know basic things about her. Introduce herself, but now paint a compelling picture about the future of this country and how everybody listening can feel included in that vision. And that is a unique and special opportunity she has. Well,
very grateful for your voice, and I know I'm going to see a lot of you in the next couple months here, so thank you, Governor Newsom.
Good to see you. Good to be with you, man. Thank you.